God will remove the wrong people to protect your destiny. Sometimes the hardest moments in life are not when something bad happens, but when someone we thought would always be there suddenly isn't. It's when a friendship you valued falls apart without explanation, when someone you trusted betrays your heart, or when a relationship you prayed would work out comes to a painful end. In those moments, it feels like the ground shifts under your feet, and you're left asking, "Why, Lord? Why did they leave? Why did you let this happen?" But here's the truth I want to share with you today. Sometimes God's greatest blessings come wrapped in what feels like loss. Sometimes His protection looks like subtraction. When the wrong people walk away, it's not rejection, it's redirection. It's God saying, "I love you too much to let this person derail your destiny." There are people in your life who were never meant to carry the weight of your calling. They may have been good to you, but not good for you. They may have been part of your past, but not your future. And while it hurts to let go, God sees what you cannot see. He knows the conversations behind closed doors, the motives buried in the heart, the hidden traps you never would have recognized on your own. So when He removes someone, it isn't cruelty, it's mercy, it's divine protection. It's God clearing the path so you can walk fully in the purpose He created for you. This message is not about bitterness or blame. It's about trust. It's about seeing with eyes of faith that every goodbye has purpose, every separation has meaning, and every person who exits your life creates space for the right people to enter. You don't need to fear the pruning. You don't need to resist the shifting. Because if God took someone out, He's getting ready to bring you into something better. And when you can trust His hand, even when it breaks your heart, you'll find that He is always faithful to give you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. Recognizing God's protection in disguise. There are moments in life when what looks like loss is actually the shield of God's hand over your future. Think about this. How many times did you beg for a relationship to work, only to look back months or years later and realize you dodged something that would have destroyed your peace? At the time, you didn't see it. You cried, you pleaded, you felt abandoned. But later, you recognized that what felt like rejection was actually protection. God has a way of seeing things we cannot see. He knows the hearts of people. He knows the words they've spoken when you weren't in the room. He knows whether their presence will pull you closer to Him or quietly push you away. And because He loves you, He will sometimes shut the door on relationships you thought were essential. Abraham had to learn this. In the book of Genesis, chapter 13, Abraham and his nephew Lot had been traveling together. They had grown so wealthy and had so many herds and servants that the land could no longer support both of them. Strife broke out between their herdsmen. So Abraham said to Lot, "Let's not quarrel. If you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left." And Lot chose the fertile plains, leaving Abraham with what seemed like less. But right after Lot separated from Abraham, God spoke and said, "Lift up your eyes and look. All the land you see I will give to you and your descendants forever." Notice that the promise didn't come until Lot left. The blessing wasn't released until the separation happened. That's what God does. He removes so He can release. He subtracts so He can multiply. And yet, we often mistake His protection for punishment. We assume we've been rejected, when really, God was redirecting us. James chapter 1 verses 2-4 says, "Count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be complete, lacking nothing." That includes the trial of losing someone you thought was meant to stay. God is completing you, strengthening you, and preparing you for something better. Think of it like this. If you were driving down a road that ended in a cliff, and someone you trusted grabbed the wheel and swerved you into another lane, you might be angry in the moment. You might not understand why they jerked the car out of its lane. But when you see the cliff ahead, you'd realize they saved your life. That's what God is doing when He takes someone out of your journey. He sees the cliff you can't. The key is learning to trust His no as much as His yes. Trusting His removal as much as His provision. If God took them out of your life, you don't need to chase them down. You don't need to reopen doors He has closed, and you don't need to convince someone to stay who was never meant to walk your full journey with you. It's not rejection, it's redirection. It's protection in disguise. And one day, you'll look back and thank Him for the goodbye that didn't make sense at the time, but saved your destiny in the long run. Understanding the nature of wrong connections. One of the greatest lessons you can learn in your walk with God is this: not everyone in your life is meant to stay, and not everyone who looks like a blessing is truly a blessing. Some people come into your life for a season, some for a reason, and only a few for a lifetime. The danger comes when we confuse seasonal people for lifetime partners, or when we mistake a distraction for a destiny helper. The Bible is clear about the impact of the people we surround ourselves with. In 2 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 14, Paul says, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness, and what communion has light with darkness?" Now, this isn't just about marriage or dating. It's about any relationship that has the power to influence your spirit, your purpose, and your walk with Christ. If someone consistently pulls you away from prayer, from faith, from holiness, that's not a God-ordained connection. That's a distraction dressed up as friendship. So what does a wrong connection look like? Sometimes it's a person who constantly drains you emotionally. You give, but they never pour back. Other times, it's someone who competes with you secretly, someone who smiles to your face but envies your progress. It could even be someone who makes you compromise your values, encouraging you to do what you know dishonors God. These are the kinds of relationships that may feel good in the moment, but ultimately chip away at your destiny. Let me be clear, not every wrong person is an evil person. Some are simply not assigned to your journey. Think about Jonah. When he was running from God, he boarded a ship to Tarshish. The sailors on that boat weren't evil men, but because Jonah was out of God's will, His presence brought a storm into their lives. And the storm didn't calm until Jonah left the ship. The wrong person doesn't have to be malicious. They can simply be out of alignment with God's plan, and if you keep them close, their storm becomes your storm. Proverbs chapter 13 verse 20 says, "He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm." That means your company determines your direction. Your relationships shape your future. If you walk with the wrong crowd, you'll end up in places God never intended for you to be. But when you align yourself with the right people, those who sharpen your faith, speak life into your calling, and encourage your obedience to Christ, you step into a higher level of blessing and protection. Ask yourself, are the people around you lifting you toward your calling or pulling you away from it? Do they make you more like Jesus, or do they make you compromise to fit in? Because the wrong connections will cost you more than you realize. Samson had the strength of God, but his connection with Delilah blinded him to the danger until it was too late. David was anointed to be king, but his time spent with the wrong crowd almost led him into bloodshed he would have regretted forever. Understanding this truth is the first step to freedom. Not everyone who starts with you is assigned to finish with you, and that's okay. God removes the wrong connections because He knows your future. He knows who is able to run with you, pray with you, and fight beside you. And He knows who will hold you back, even if you don't see it yet. Trust Him. Let Him do the pruning, because when the wrong connections fall away, it clears space for the right ones to enter. The pain and purpose of separation. There's no denying it. When God removes someone from your life, it hurts. It feels like a tearing. It feels unfair. And sometimes it feels like your heart won't recover. You invested time, love, energy, and trust. You dreamed about a future that now looks shattered. And in that moment, the pain can blind you to the bigger picture of what God is doing. But here's the truth. Separation is not a punishment. It's preparation. It's God cutting away what cannot go with you into the next season. Think of it like pruning a tree. In John chapter 15, Jesus says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, and every branch that does bear fruit he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful." Notice this pruning hurts both the barren branch and the fruitful one, but the purpose is never destruction. It's multiplication. God is pruning you because he sees a harvest ahead. Look at Joseph's story. His own brothers sold him into slavery. He was torn away from his father, from his home, from everything he knew. I'm sure Joseph lay awake at night wondering why God had allowed such betrayal. But years later, when Joseph stood as second in command over all Egypt, feeding nations during famine, he was able to say to his brothers in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring about this present result, to save many people alive." The separation was painful, but it carried divine purpose. Without it, Joseph never would have been positioned to fulfill his calling. Sometimes, God allows heartbreak to break chains. Sometimes he lets you feel loss so he can lead you into true gain. If certain people had stayed in your life, you would have settled in places God never designed for you. You would have built your future on shaky ground. And though it hurt to say goodbye, that goodbye was the doorway into your destiny. But I won't sugarcoat it. The wilderness between loss and promise is hard. It's lonely. It feels like God is silent. You wonder if you'll ever feel whole again. And that's where faith has to rise. That's where you have to remind yourself of Romans chapter 8, verse 28, which says, "All things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose." All things, even the heartbreak, even the rejection, even the unexpected goodbye. Think of Israel wandering the desert after leaving Egypt. They had to be separated from slavery to experience freedom, but the space in between was uncomfortable. That's what separation feels like. It's the desert between bondage and promise. But God doesn't waste the desert. He uses it to teach you, strengthen you, and prepare you for the land flowing with milk and honey. So if you're in the middle of that painful space right now, take heart. Your tears are not wasted. Your loneliness is not permanent. God is shaping you in the silence. He's removing what cannot go with you, so you can step into what only He can give you. The pain has a purpose, and one day you'll look back and see that it was not the end of your story, it was the beginning of your breakthrough. Trusting God's timing and process. One of the hardest parts about when God removes people from your life is the waiting that follows. It's not just the ache of separation, it's the silence of not knowing why. We live in a world that craves instant answers. If something breaks, we fix it. If something is confusing, we Google it. But with God, the process doesn't always come with explanations. Many times, He asks us to trust His timing without revealing His reasoning. Think about Job. He lost everything: his children, his wealth, even his health. Friends turned against him. His wife told him to curse God, and he sat in ashes asking why. And for most of his story, God didn't answer the why. Yet Job held on to his faith, declaring in Job chapter 13, verse 15, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." And in the end, God restored Job with double what he had lost. The process was long, it was painful, and it was confusing. But the timing was perfect, because it brought Job into a deeper revelation of who God is. That's the same truth for you. When someone exits your life and you don't understand, you have two choices. Either chase after what God has already removed, or surrender to the process and trust that He sees what you don't. If you try to force relationships that God has ended, you will only bring more pain into your life. It's like trying to drink from a well God has already dried up. No matter how much you want it to refresh you, there's nothing left there to give. Look at Joseph again. After being betrayed and sold into slavery, he ended up in prison for years for a crime he didn't commit. If anyone had the right to question God's timing, it was Joseph. But Joseph stayed faithful in the waiting. He served with excellence even in the pit. And when the timing was right, Pharaoh called him from the prison to the palace in a single day. That's what God's timing can do. It may feel slow, but when the moment comes, it shifts everything instantly. The Apostle Paul also knew what it meant to lose people and to walk alone. He said in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 16, "At my first defense, no one stood with me, but everyone deserted me. But the Lord stood with me and gave me strength." That's the heart of trusting the process, understanding that even if people walk away, God never does. He fills every gap and strengthens every weakness. Here's the key. God's timing is not about making sense to you. It's about fulfilling His perfect plan in you. Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 and 9 says, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." His process is higher, His perspective is wider, and while you may not understand why today, you'll see the wisdom tomorrow. So don't rush the healing. Don't run back to what He has closed. Don't resent the silence. Trust the process. Trust His timing, because if God allowed someone to leave, it's only because He's making room for something greater. And when the right time comes, you'll see that the delay wasn't denial, it was preparation for His best. Walking forward with faith and hope. When God removes the wrong people from your life, the question isn't just, "Why did this happen?" The bigger question is, "How do I move forward?" Because the truth is, separation leaves scars. Rejection can leave a sting. And if you're not careful, you can get stuck in the pain of the past instead of stepping into the promise of the future. The first step is healing, and healing begins with forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean what they did was right. It doesn't mean the betrayal, the abandonment, or the dishonesty didn't hurt. What forgiveness does is release you from carrying the weight of bitterness. It frees you from rehearsing the offense over and over again in your heart. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, verses 14 and 15, "If you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins." Forgiveness is not just for them, it's for you. It clears the space in your heart for God's love and peace to flow again. The second step is choosing joy. Not the fake smile you put on for others, but a deep, unshakable joy that comes from trusting Jesus with your story. Philippians chapter 4, verse 4 says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say, rejoice." Notice Paul didn't say rejoice when life is perfect. He wrote that while in prison, true joy is not about circumstances, it's about confidence that God is still in control. Choosing joy in loss says, "Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you." The third step is building new, God-aligned connections. Just because someone left doesn't mean you're meant to live isolated. God created us for community, but He wants you connected to people who sharpen you, not drain you. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." The right people will push you closer to your calling. They'll pray with you, encourage you, and walk beside you in faith. Ask God to bring those relationships into your life, and be willing to let Him surprise you with who they are. Finally, moving forward means shifting your focus. Stop replaying the past. Stop rehearsing the what-ifs and if-onlys. Instead, set your eyes on what God has ahead. Isaiah chapter 43, verse 18 and 19 says, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. God's word says He is doing a new thing in your life, and you can't see the new thing if your eyes are still glued to what's gone. Walking forward with faith and hope doesn't mean you'll never feel the ache again. It means you don't let the ache define you. It means you wake up each day saying, Lord, I trust you more than my feelings. I believe that if you removed them, you have something greater waiting for me. Every step forward is a declaration of faith. Every moment you refuse to let bitterness take root is a victory. And every day you choose hope is a day the enemy loses his grip on your heart. So walk forward with faith, with hope, with your eyes fixed on Jesus. Because if He took the wrong people out, it's only to prepare you for the right ones to come and for the destiny He's been writing for you all along. Conclusion. Life has a way of surprising us with both blessings and heartbreaks, but nothing surprises God. He knows the people who belong in your story and the ones who don't. And as painful as it is when someone leaves, as confusing as it feels when a relationship ends, you can rest in this truth. If God allowed them to walk out, it's because they weren't meant to walk with you into the future. He has prepared. His love for you is too deep to let the wrong voices stay close, too wise to let the wrong hands hold your heart, and too protective to let the wrong people distract you from His calling. So, instead of clinging to closed doors, choose to trust the one who opens and shuts them with perfect wisdom. Instead of living in the shadow of loss, lift your eyes to the promise of what's coming. Every separation is setting the stage for divine alignment. Every goodbye is making room for God's better yes. I know it hurts. I know it feels unfair at times. But just as a gardener prunes branches to bring more fruit, God prunes relationships so that your life will flourish. Just as He took Lot away from Abraham before giving the full promise, He will remove what cannot carry the weight of your destiny. And just as Joseph learned in Egypt what others meant for harm, God can turn into the very thing that saves and elevates you. So walk forward with courage. Release bitterness. Embrace forgiveness. Trust His timing. And believe that every person who left your life was part of His plan, not to destroy you, but to protect you. Because if God took the wrong people out, it means the right people, the right opportunities, and the right future are still ahead. And when you look back one day, you'll thank Him not only for who He brought into your life, but also for who He lovingly took away.